Maybe the continuous spate of good news over Tesla is starting to impact the market as Tesla this morning is up and the rest of the market is down. It's not big, but it's telling. We've got Jensen Huang. He's talking about Elon again, and this time he's explaining Elon Musk's three superpowers. Tesla is up in a down market, as I just didn't I just say that? Business is starting to be impacted by shipping and oil issues, so that might be impacting the markets overall this morning. And also the Tesla semi reviews are coming in. We'll start with a big one. In fact, right now, Sawyer Merritt says that Tesla says there are now currently a few hundred Tesla semis out in the real world that have traveled a combined 13.5 million miles, with one truck that has traveled 440,000 miles. The fleet has 95% uptime. This is incredible. This is huge. 80% of the breakdowns, if they have one, are returned back to the customer in less than 24 hours. And half are back in less than 1 hour. This is a massive, massive change for that industry. This was revealed in a video yesterday with Jay Leno, who released a 47-minute episode of Jay Leno's Garage yesterday. Jay Leno drives the 500-mile Tesla semi. The Death of Diesel is the name of the video if you want to check it out. In it, he gets an in-depth tour and test drive of the production intent Tesla semi, the long-range 500 and the standard range 325, with Tesla's Director of Styling Franz von Holzhausen and semi-program director Dan Priestley. Leno hauls a heavy 70,000-pound load, and he asks plenty of practical questions about real-world trucking use. Here are the main takeaways. Driving experience. Leno repeatedly praised how the semi-truck drives like a big car or even a spaceship, quiet, smooth, with instant torque and no gear shifting. While hauling heavy loads, he said he barely felt the weight. I don't even feel like I'm pulling anything. Regenerative braking provides excellent downhill control without using the friction brakes much. The central driver's seat for better aerodynamics gives a commanding view and feels futuristic. So those are all, very, very good comments from which we kind of know, if you've been paying attention. The cab is bullet shaped with a drag coefficient around 0.4%. That is better than a Bugatti Veyron. There's a 7% aero improvement over prior versions. The driver sits in the middle to allow a narrower front end. We just talked about that. New drop glass windows roll all the way down for easier access to docks. This is a problem in the beginning that they changed. Weight has been reduced by 1,000 pounds, helping this long-range model achieve payload parity with diesel trucks. Now, this is thanks in part to a 2,000-pound federal EV weight exemption. Range and charging, long-range version 500 miles, standard range 325 miles, charges up to 1.2 megawatts, recovering 60% in about 30 minutes. Tesla's building out a megacharging network, as we know. Powertrain and performance, dual motor axles with different gearing and optimized for torque and hills. One gear for torque and hills, the other for cruising. No multi-speed transmission needed. It handles grades without overheating issues. It has of course, the 4680 cells, which we talked about a lot the other day, which, according to Grok, made it possible to bring out the Tesla Semi, which had been impossible really at any good price without these semis taking $44,000 off the price of the 4680 is taking $44,000 off the price of the cost of goods. Durability and maintenance, battery and drivetrain are targeted for 1 million miles with minimal degradation. The fleet has already logged over 13.5 million, as we talked about. Economics and real-world use, significantly cheaper to operate, 50% less per mile in California, nearly 20% nationwide when factoring in energy, maintenance, and everything else. Electricity prices are more stable than diesel. It can power the truck can power refrigerated trailers electrically, no noisy diesel pony motors. It handles cold weather well. It's been tested in Alaska, and it has heat pumps and thermal systems that keep range loss comparable to a diesel. The cab is described as an office of the future with good comfort and visibility. Now, as Elon has talked about for years, this is a very, very big deal. Every time you take one of these diesel trucks off the road, you save way, way, way more energy. Way more gas, way more exhaust fumes, dust from braking. All kinds of things are dramatically different with these trucks. But then for the companies that buy them, 50% savings in California and 20% nationally in some of the states that have cheaper diesel. Yeah, that's pretty good. And that's before we add in autonomy, which is going to change everything. All right, there's a clearing for the robotaxi factory in Austin, which we've been talking about. Robotaxi, no, not robotaxi, for the Optimus factory in Austin. The Terafab may give Optimus a brain. This is from Joe Tagmeyer. And Cortex may give Optimus his thoughts and intelligence, but he needs a body too. And massive progress is now underway on the graded foundation for the 10 million per year production facility here at Giga, Texas. So that we've been talking about that for a couple of days, but he's confirmed it now. That's what we're looking at. Tesla Ming says there's good news out of Tesla's gross profit for energy generation and storage segment is now projected to jump over 40% in 2026 to 5.34 billion compared to 3.8 billion in 2025. The energy division is becoming a very large company under its just all by itself. Sawyer Merritt says this. He says Elon Musk's Boring Company has announced that the company will be building 3 tunnels for free. The locations will be the New Orleans, Louisiana Loop, the Ravens Loop in Baltimore, and the University Hills Loop in Dallas. The Boring Company will pay to build all 3, pending due diligence and feasibility, as well as 2 additional tunnels, a Henderson Utility Tunnel in Henderson, Tennessee, and Morgan's Wonderland Tunnel in San Antonio, Texas, if these last 2 are feasible and can get approved. So this will be interesting to see how that comes together. Dustin says, here's the Jensen Wang interview. This is an interview that just came out yesterday. Jensen Wang just reverse engineered why Elon Musk operates at speed that no one on the planet can even match. The first is deletion. Huang says he has the ability to question everything to the point where there's nothing down, everything's down to minimal amount. Everything gets down to minimum. Most engineers, he says, solve problems by adding. Musk solves them by subtracting. Every part, every process, every assumption that survived because no one had the nerve to kill it. He picks it up, asks if it's load bearing. If the answer is anything less than absolutely, it's gone. Not simplified, not optimized, removed. What survives is the skeleton, the bare physics of the problem, nothing between intent and execution. Huang goes on, as minimalist as you could possibly imagine. And he does it at system scale, not at product level, not at department level, across entire companies, entire industries, entire supply chains. He strips a rocket the same way he strips a meeting, down to the load-bearing walls and nothing else. The second superpower is presence. Huang says he is present at the point of action. If there's a problem, he'll just go there and ask them, show me the problem. Not a Slack message, not a report filtered through 4 levels of people who weren't there when it broke. He walks to the future, stands over it, puts his hands on it. Most executives have never seen the actual problem that the company is trying to solve. Think about that. Most executives have never seen, it's true, they've never seen the actual problem their company is trying to solve. They've seen slides about it. They might have read summaries of it. They might have formed opinions about it in rooms that are nowhere near it. But Musk stands right over the broken hardware and doesn't leave until it works. That collapses the distance that buries most organizations. The gap between something breaking and the person with authority to fix it actually understanding what broke. In most companies, that gap is weeks. For Musk, it is hours. The third part of this, third superpower, is the one that bends everyone around him. Huang says it this way: when you act personally with so much urgency, it causes everyone else to act with urgency. Every supplier has 100 customers. Every vendor has a dozen priorities. Every manufacturer has a backlog stretching months into the future. Musk makes sure he makes himself the top of every one of those lists. So if there are shortages, if there are problems, if there are issues, Musk makes sure he's at the top of the list of those suppliers demanding attention to his companies. According to this article, though, he doesn't demand it, he demonstrates it. When the CE shows up at your facility at midnight, when he's moving faster than your own internal team, when his timeline makes yours look like a suggestion, you do not put him in the queue. You rearrange the queue around him. Huang watched this up close. Huang says he does this by demonstrating, not by asking, not by negotiating, not by leveraging a contract clause, by moving so fast that everybody else's normal pace feels like he's standing still. They're standing still. 3 traits: strip everything down, show up at the failure, get to the point of failure, find out what that roadblock is, and then move so fast that the world rearranges around you. This is not a management philosophy. This is how one man runs 6 companies while entire boards cannot keep one moving. Tesla Chan has this morning. Tesla in the first quarter of 2026 shipped over 26,000 cars to Korea to be sold to the customers. Tesla sales in Korea were only 60,000 units in all of 2025. At this rate, we would be looking at almost doubling to over 100,000 cars if they can keep up that pace. That doesn't necessarily, not necessarily going to be true, but that's what it would be. Barron says this morning: Tesla's European sales in February totaled 17,664 vehicles, up 11.8% year over year. Now, wait a minute. Let me go back to Tesla Chan here. Korea, 26,000 cars in February, right? No, first quarter, 26,000 in the first quarter. So that'd be a little over 8,000 a quarter. Tesla's European sales, 17,644 in February. So they're only doing double Korea. All of Europe only doing double Korea. Well, it's just great to see European sales are up, Korean sales are up. Some people are like me; they're beginning to think that maybe there's a beat in motion. Maybe we're going to see a special situation. Larry Goldberg was a little worried last night about the shipping lanes and about things getting to their destinations, because so many things have to go through the Straits of Hormuz. We're going to see how that all plays out. This is Randy Kirk, by the way, if you haven't figured that out yet. I may have told you, I may have mentioned it, that I have a book for sale or 2. So in the last 6 months, I've published 2 books. One of them, of course, is the AI Rising book, which it continues to be, is the only book out there which covers the stack. If you want to know about the stack, if you want to understand the stack better, this is the book to read. But it also has chapters, a whole bunch of chapters about the applications that might be true for you, for your children, for your associates, even for your grandchildren in some cases, in terms of how they're going to make decisions about future job, how they're going to get their first job, maybe if they're just getting out of university. Then there's what's it called? Elon Musk Magic, which everybody's agreeing is the fastest paced and most interesting, fun to read biography ever of Elon Musk, with some people saying that they thought they wouldn't learn a thing, and they did. They learned lots of stuff in the book. By the way, I got a new book coming out in about a week or two. That'll make 3 in 6 months. And that book is going to be about helping people to find their new vocation if they're out of if AI has taken them out of a job. And this is coming out probably in a week or so. Trying to imagine that your company that you work for, uh, I'm sorry, you might want to try this, a little imagination trick. Try to imagine maybe the company you're working for now, or maybe you worked for before you retired, or maybe it's your own company. Try to imagine if all of a sudden, through some reason, the CEO, the president, the CFO, and the CIO were all gone, just gone. They quit, they got sick, I don't know, whatever, they're gone. And then also the head of the bookkeeping department, the buyer, the sales manager, and the office manager, and also the head of shipping, all gone, gone, just gone. What would happen to that organization? It would be in complete disarray. Nobody would know what to do. Sure, the underlings would be able to process an invoice, but they wouldn't be able to decide what to buy. They wouldn't be able to decide. The people, the underlings in the shipping department would be disarrayed and disorganized. Well, according to sources, the Iranian government is now split into multiple factions with nobody running the show. My guess, and it doesn't take a genius, is that Israeli and U.S. intelligence have some very good clarity on who can reunite the country. And this is the guy that they're talking to right now. On March 22nd, 2026, Iran's representative to the International Maritime Organization, al-Musavi, reiterated to Iranian media and to the IMO that the straits are open to all shipping except vessels linked to Iran's enemies, the U.S. and Israel. Ships not affiliated with those two countries can transit by coordinating safety and security arrangements with Tehran. But the problem is that most shippers and insurance companies are still avoiding the strait because of active threats, mines, drones, and also other insurance risks. This is despite Iran's claims. Iran continues to export its own oil and gas selectively, and they're still continuing to threaten full closure. So this is now, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, what is it now, that they've been closed, and it's going to start impacting business, and it's going to start impacting business here at home as well as around the world. MarketWatch says the monetary policy outlook at the Federal Reserve appears to be shifting away from interest rate cuts and towards potential increases, with comments coming from President Austin Goolsbee of Chicago. On Monday, Goolsbee said that the central bank may need to tighten monetary policy in response to the impact of rising oil prices on the U.S. economy. This is a major shift from his stance just weeks ago. In an interview with CNBC, Goolsbee said every option is on the table and interest rates could move in either direction. We could be back in an environment with multiple rate cuts for the year if inflation behaves. I can see circumstances where we would need to raise rates if we're going a different way and inflation was getting out of control. But he's not taking into consideration whether the business market will change as well. If Fed officials ultimately decide to hike rates, it would mark a big change in policy, as officials have been laser focused on rate cuts. Truflation says this morning, breaking non-farm business productivity rose 1.8% annualized in quarter four. That is the revised number, down from 2.8, which was the preliminary number. Output increasing 1.5, but hours working plateauing and down a little bit, down 0.2%. From the fourth quarter of 2024 to the fourth quarter of 25, the non-farm business sector labor productivity increased by 2.5 for the year, while the annual average productivity increased 2.1 in the prior year. So a little bit of an uptick. Implications, the 2025 above-trend productivity supports non-inflationary growth and potential upsides to GDP, supporting the latest FOMC GDP forecasts. They go on to say that U.S. unit labor costs accelerated sharply to 4.4 in the fourth quarter. That was revised up from 2.8%. 4.4 is what we've been looking at. That's about what we've been seeing, driven by hourly compensation driven up by 6.3%. and productivity came in softer. Real inflation-adjusted hourly compensation still increased by a healthy 3.7 after inflation and 2.1% between quarter 2024 and quarter 2025. Annual unit labor costs rose 2.3. The downward revision in quarter four productivity and the upward revision to unit labor costs highlight that wage pressures outpaced efficiency gains last year. If this pattern persists, it could keep underlying cost pressures alive, potentially adding to consumer inflation. However, real wage growth also supports consumer spending. This is really important. And also remember, keep in mind that it will look like inflation, but it won't be inflation. Inflation only comes when now lower productivity, which is what they're talking about here, that can cause inflation. All right, we got the flash U.S. composite PMI output index for February. This is at an 11-month low. The flash U.S. services PMI business activity index also an 11-month low, 51.9 and 51.1. February the manufacturing output is actually up to a 2-month high at 52.7. Manufacturing output and then manufacturing PMI at 52.4. That's also a 2-month high. So the services are the drag. Chris Williamson, chief business economist, says the flash PMI survey data for March signaled an unwelcome combination of slower growth and rising inflation following the outbreak of war in the Middle East. Companies are reporting a hit to demand from the additional uncertainty and the cost of living impacted generally by the conflict. Travel, transport, and tourism-related issues are compounded by financial market jitters and affordability constraints, notably including concern over the impact of higher interest rates, surging energy prices, and supply chain delays, which we've obviously seen and have been reporting on here. Companies are meanwhile building safety stocks amid concerns that the war may lead to more protracted supply issues and price rises while trimming their headcounts to reduce overheads. The PMI data are indicative of a GDP rising at an annualized rate of just 1%, with a modest 1.3 expansion signaling for the first quarter as a whole. The survey's price gauges, meanwhile, point to consumer price inflation accelerating back to around 4%, hitting at a growing risk of the U.S. moving into an environment of stagflation. Now, remember, in order for us to get back to 4%, the goods and services inflation would have to be crazy high to make up for the fact that housing is going down. The Fed will therefore need to juggle these intensifying upside risks to inflation against a growing risk of the economy losing momentum, as I just said 2 seconds ago. The GDP now is showing first quarter at 2%, so higher than the 1.4% predicted by S&P. Trump is at 44% today in terms of approval, which is trending toward the lower of his range since he became president. Trueflation right now up to 1.74, which is just a tick up compared to yesterday. Goods also up a tick to 3.72, but core is remaining at 1.36. Services still way down at 0.687, and the PCE at 2.5. Again, let me just reiterate that you can't get inflation up to 4% if the services number is correct here, if the core number is correct here, we'd be talking about down, not up. All right. Let's go ahead and see if things are the way that they were a minute ago. Well, Tesla continues to be up almost a full percent. It's a little off of its absolute high, but it's now at 384.44, while the Dow, the NASDAQ, and S&P are down. The Dow down 0.21, but going up, getting close to break even. NASDAQ down 0.82 and staying down. And the S&P also kind of flatlining now at down 0.41. Apple joins Tesla as the only other one of the Mag 7 that is up. And there's a lot of stuff going on about Apple in terms of the Apple Air, the iPhone Air, and they're doing very well with that. So they have very specific news, and the rest of the Mag 7 are down and mostly staying down. The VIX is up 2.62 at 27 now, and the Cathie Woods are mostly down, but moving towards break even. And let's go ahead and move over now to the bonds. So the bonds were up earlier. Let's take a look. They are still up, but not as badly. They were up like over 6% now. I mean, 6 basis points. Still up though, 4.8 basis points to 4.38. Oil up $3.57, 91.70. Brent at 102.92, also up 2.98. Natural gas up 0.59, but staying under $3 at $2.90. Gold continues down, but not very much today. It was down way more earlier today. Things are seemingly moderating after the start this morning, although except for Tesla, which is staying up nicely. Gold is only down 460 today. It just changed in front of my eyes. 620 today at 4,400 exactly. Silver down 0.84 at 68.77, and copper down 0.88 at $5.42. That is definitely the lowest it's been in months. The dollar is up a little in general, and Bitcoin down 782, clocking in right at 70,070. Ethereum staying nicely above 2,000 at 2,136, but down 1.1%. Okay, so later on today, oh, what was that? What was that last thing I just saw there? That might not be important. Moody's did cut ratings on a private credit fund co-run by KKR. They cut it to junk because of bad loans. So the private credit thing is raising its head. I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, but I think I will have to start paying attention to that in order to be thorough on this channel. All right, we've got Nick Gibbs coming up later today, followed by Brian Wang, replacing Brian White, not because Brian White didn't produce, but because Brian Wang had a really, really good story to tell. And so that'll be tonight. We'll move Brian White to the weekend. Nick Gibbs, based on what I've seen him reporting on X the last day and a half, I think we're going to have a great show tonight. So be sure to be tuned to that. And in order to do that, you may want to subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, I have to question your intelligence, and then hit notify so that you get reminded of the show coming up. And of course, hitting the like button is always a really, really good idea. It helps the channel. Okay, and then the 2 books that have recently been published, those are down below in the description. You can check, you can hit those links and move on to those if you'd like to do that. And then the other thing is that last night, fantastic show with Larry Goldberg, unbelievably good. And then a nice show with Brian White as well. I'm going to put both cards up. I think you would enjoy both of them if you haven't seen them. And they did have a little bit of a slow night in terms of views. So many of you didn't see them yet. And I'm saying, yeah, worth it to go back and check both of those out. All right. I think that's all I got for you right now. So I'm going to say adieu. It's been lovely talking to you.